Okay. Um, let's unpack this. I want you to picture a really specific scene.
All right, set the stage for us.
You're back in high school. It's the middle of the day, that sort of golden hour right before a class called Nature and Innovation.
Yeah.
And you have been gifted the absolute holy grail of student life, a free period.
Ah,
Uh,
yes. The elusive free period.
exactly. Now, for 99% of the student population, a free period translates directly to one thing.
A sprint to the nearest donut shop to carb load before the bell rings.
Right. It's basically universal code for doing absolutely nothing productive.
Right.
Just low blood sugar and zero supervision.
Maximum procrastination.
Yeah. But then you have these two students, Kesser and Steen. These two look at that 45-minute gap in the schedule and they see something completely different.
They see a logistical opportunity.
Yes. They decide to use this time to launch what they're calling a biology experiment.
Which we should probably clarify right out of the gate is just a brilliant piece of marketing.
It's savvy rebranding at its finest. Because what they're actually doing is prepping a vegetable garden for Steen's house, specifically a kitchen garden for his family's backyard.
Right, but by calling it a biology experiment, they get access to the school's facilities, they get the warm classroom, the big tables, the approving nods from teachers.
Suddenly, they aren't just two guys playing in the dirt, they're researching.
It's a masterclass in agency. And that's really what stands out to me in these sources we're looking at today. We are going to dive into the specifics of the tomatoes they're planting and the really weird soil science involved. But the core story here is about resourcefulness.
It's about looking at a curriculum gap and a pile of what most people would just call trash and seeing the raw materials for something valuable.
Exactly. It connects biology with what I would call junkyard mechanics. It is low budget, high concept, and there's a surprising amount of science hidden in their corner cutting.
So that's our mission today. We're taking a deep dive into the world of Kesser, Steen, and the tomato revolution. We've got a whole stack of notes detailing exactly how they used a break period to engineer a garden from scratch.
And when we say scratch, we mean scratch.
We're talking toilet paper rolls, soil that looks like dust from a tomb, and a philosophy on timing that might just change how you look at your own to-do list.
We'll also get into why salty seaweed might be the secret ingredient you didn't know you needed. Let's start with the hardware.
Yeah, let's do it. Because usually when you decide to start a garden, step one is a trip to the garden center, right? You buy the black plastic trays, the little plastic pots, maybe a specialized trowel.
You spend $50 before you've even touched dirt. You buy the kit.
But Steen, he's been playing the long game. Apparently, he has been collecting cardboard tubes from paper towel rolls and toilet paper rolls for months.
Just hoarding them in his room.
Which sounds like clutter. If you walked into his room, you'd think, why do you have a bag of trash?
But there is an engineering logic here. In a student budget scenario, or really any sustainable scenario, purchasing plastic pots is just inefficient.
Because the cardboard tubes are free.
They're free, yes, but biologically, they actually offer a massive advantage over the plastic ones.
Okay, break that down for me. Why is a toilet paper roll superior to a professionally made plastic pot?
It comes down to the transplant. Think about what happens when you grow a seedling in plastic. Eventually, the plant gets too big and you have to move it to the ground.
Right.
You have to squeeze the pot, turn it upside down, and shake it. And no matter how gentle you are disturbing the root system. You're tearing microscopic root hairs.
The plant goes into shock.
Exactly. It stops growing for a few days to recover from the trauma, but with a cardboard tube, you never take the plant out. You dig a hole in the garden, and you drop the entire tube in.
Oh, wow.
The cardboard is carbon. It decomposes in the damp soil. The roots just punch right through it. They never know they've been moved.
It's like the stealth bomber approach to gardening.
Precisely. And there's another layer to it. Customization. You can cut these tubes to whatever length you need. If you want a deeper root system early on, you just cut a longer tube.
You aren't limited by the standardized manufacturing of a plastic pot. And this is where Steen's personality really shines through in the source text.
He brings that mechanic's precision.
Yeah, we learn that Steen isn't just a gardener. He loves working on cars. He hangs out at the junkyard, tinkering with engines. So when he sits down at the table in this nature and innovation classroom, he isn't just hacking away at the tubes with dull scissors.
No, the description is quite vivid. He cuts them to exact matching heights. He treats the cardboard like it's precision-milled steel.
I just love that mental image.
Yeah.
A guy with grease under his fingernails, applying that same hyper-focus to a toilet paper roll. He sets them up in an egg carton which acts as the holding tray, and they are perfectly uniform, like soldiers in a row.
But there's a funny motivation here, too. He's not just being a perfectionist for the sake of it. He's trying to sell a concept.
The client pitch.
Exactly. The client is his mother. He wants to convince his mom that turning their backyard into a vegetable garden is a good idea.
Now, moms can be skeptical of messes. If he brings home a sloppy tray of wet cardboard that looks like garbage, she's going to say no.
But if it looks like a precision-engineered agricultural system, he gets the green light. It's the premium aesthetic applied to recycling. He knows that presentation implies competence.
If the pots look organized, the garden will seem manageable. And the egg carton choice is highly functional too.
Right. It's a moisture buffer. Cardboard tubes can dry out very fast because they are porous. The egg carton holds them upright, but it also absorbs any excess water that runs out of the bottom.
It keeps the humidity localized around the base of the tubes. So it's a completely biodegradable, self-regulating system.
So they have the hardware set up, the tubes are in the egg carton, looking military grade. Now they need the software, or in this case, the dirt.
And this is where Kesser steps in. Kesser seems to be the mentor figure here, the one with the real horticultural knowledge.
Yes, Kesser brings out the potting mix, but again, this isn't a bag of Miracle Grow from the store. This is the ultimate budget move.
The notes describe it as used homemade compost. And apparently it is in rough shape. It's described as being bone dry.
Which is very common for stored compost. If you keep compost in a shed or a garage through the winter to keep it from freezing solid, it loses almost all its moisture. It turns into dust.
Steen actually makes a joke about it. He asks if you can really plant anything in dirt that is drier than sand from the Sahara.
It's a fair question. If you've ever tried to water really, really dry soil, you know what happens. It doesn't soak in.
It becomes hydrophobic.
Exactly. As organic matter decomposes and dries out completely, it gets coated in waxy substances from the breakdown of leaves and plant matter. When you pour water on it, the water literally beads up and rolls off.
Like water on a duck's back.
It creates a surface tension barrier. So if you just poured a watering can over these tubes, the water would run down the sides of the cardboard and leave the middle completely dry.
You just have wet cardboard and dry dust in the center.
Yeah.
The seeds would never germinate. But Kesser has a technique for this.
And this is a great hack for anyone listening who works with old potting soil. You don't try to mix it with water in a bucket. That's too messy and difficult.
So what is the protocol?
Kesser's method is fill the tubes with the dry dust first. Build the structure dry.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then you add water, specifically with a teaspoon. You do it slowly, right in the tube. By confining the soil inside the tube, the water has nowhere to run.
It sits on top of the dust.
Gravity and time force it to penetrate. It eventually breaks that surface tension because it's trapped.
It turns the dust back into a sponge, but you really have to force it.
It's like rehydrating freeze-dried food. You just have to be patient. Manual rehydration, 1 teaspoon at a time.
So they get this Sahara sand damp. It's finally looking like actual soil. Now it's time for the seeds. And again, in the spirit of this whole project, they didn't go buy a packet of seeds.
No, these are heirlooms in the truest sense. They are homemade seeds harvested from the previous year, specifically from tomato plants that Steen's family loved.
I think that is such a cool detail. It's not just a generic tomato. It's that specific tomato we ate last August that tasted amazing.
That is the essence of seed saving. You aren't just saving money, you are selecting for genetics.
I know.
You know those specific plants did well in your climate, and you know you like the flavor.
You're cloning your own success. Kesser and Steen had apparently harvested, cleaned, and dried these kernels in a previous session.
But they don't just toss them in the dirt dry. Kesser has them doing a little prep work.
Right, he has the seeds soaking. He lets them swell up or rehydrate in water before planting.
A dry seed is in a state of dormancy. It's basically in a coma, waiting for a signal that it's safe to wake up.
And that signal is moisture.
Moisture penetrating the hard outer shell, the seed coat. By soaking them in a cup of water beforehand, you are jump-starting that biological clock. You soften the shell so the little sprout can break through easier.
You can shave 3 or 4 days off the germination time. So they're dropping these wet, swollen seeds into the damp tubes, and they're doing 2 seeds per chamber, or per tube.
Standard insurance policy. Hedge your bets.
If one is a dud, the other one takes over. But Kesser points out something really interesting here about tomatoes specifically. With most plants, if you plant 2 seeds in one spot and they both grow, you have to kill one, you have to thin them.
Because they compete.
Right. But Kesser says if both tomatoes sprout, you can just plant them both side by side.
This is where botany comes into play. With plants like carrots or radishes, they are root vegetables. They need space underground. If they touch, they deform.
But tomatoes are different.
Our sources highlight that tomato plants are essentially lianas.
Lianas, like jungle vines.
Exactly. In their wild state in South America, tomatoes are vining plants. They scramble over the ground. They are capable of rooting from their stems.
Oh, so if two tomato plants grow right next to each other, they don't necessarily choke each other out.
They can absolutely coexist. As long as you eventually give them support, like a trellis or a stake, they can grow upward together. Kesser knows that crowding isn't fatal for tomatoes the way it is for other crops.
So they've got the pots, the dust, the seeds.
Hmm.
But there's a looming problem. It is February.
The timing dilemma. This is the classic gardener's struggle.
It was freezing outside, there was frost on the ground, and they are planting warm weather crops in a classroom. Kesser knows deep down that it is a long, long time until May, which is usually when the frost risk is gone.
And planting this early carries significant risks. If you start a plant indoors in February, by April it might be 2 feet tall. It gets leggy.
That leggy.
It's a term for when a plant isn't getting enough intense light. It stretches upward, desperately trying to find the sun. The stem becomes thin and weak.
You end up with a giant floppy plant that can't support its own weight. It sounds like a nightmare to transplant.
It is. So why did they do it? Why not just wait until April?
Well, the source text offers a few philosophical reasons that honestly apply to more than just gardening. First, there's the opportunity argument. They have the free period now. They have the motivation now.
Strike while the iron is hot. If they wait for the perfect time in April, they might be busy with exams. They might have lost interest.
Better to have a slightly leggy plant than no plant at all, because you never got around to it. There's also the hedging bets strategy. Kesser thinks maybe spring comes early this year.
And if it doesn't, they have options. The text mentions Aunt Green's greenhouse. If the plants get too big for the windowsill, they can outsource them to a relative with better facilities.
Or trade them. This is the part I really loved. They view these plants as currency. If they end up with too many or if they start too early, they can swap them with other people.
The underground plant economy.
Exactly. But that leads to the labeling issue. Kesser's usually like, whatever happens, happens. A tomato is a tomato. But he tells Steen, put a sign on it.
Because if you want to use the plant as currency, you need to know what you are selling. You can't trade a mystery plant.
You need to know if it's a cherry tomato or a beefsteak. Information adds value to the product.
Speaking of mysteries, let's talk about the volunteer seeds. This is a concept in the text that really stuck with me.
It is a beautiful phenomenon in nature. A volunteer is a seed that fell off a plant last year, survived the winter in the ground, and sprouts all on its own when the conditions are perfect.
No greenhouse, no paper towel rolls, no watering with a teaspoon, just nature doing its thing.
And the text notes that these volunteer plants often catch up to the ones started indoors. You can spend months babying a plant on a windowsill, worrying about it, turning it to the light.
And then a volunteer sprouts in May and completely overtakes the indoor plant in 3 weeks because it has the full power of the sun and the perfect seasonal timing.
It really makes you wonder why we force things, doesn't it?
It does. It raises the question, are we working harder just to feel like we are in control?
But for Steen, since this is a brand new garden, he doesn't have any volunteers yet. He has to do the work to establish the baseline. Right. You have to build the system before you can let the system run itself. Now, I want to pivot to the really controversial part of this deep dive, the secret ingredient in the soil.
The compost composition.
Kesser reveals that this dry, dusty soil isn't just rotted leaves. It contains seaweed and eelgrass.
Which implies they collected it from the beach.
And immediately I'm thinking, wait a minute. Seaweed implies salt. Salt is usually the enemy of agriculture. Like, salting the earth is literally a phrase for destroying land. You do that to your enemies so they starve.
It is a very common misconception, and this is where the science in our sources gets really fascinating. The text references a study from the University of Madrid that changes everything.
Go on. Defend the salt.
The research indicates that for tomatoes specifically, a certain level of salinity is not only non-toxic, but it actually improves the flavor.
Really? It seasons the tomato from the inside out.
In a way, yes. It's about stress. The salt creates osmotic stress. It makes it slightly harder for the plant to take up water.
So the plant thinks, uh-oh, conditions are tough.
Exactly. So it responds by producing more sugars, more antioxidants, and more flavor compounds to protect its cells.
So a happy, pampered plant might actually be bland.
Often, yes. If you give a plant perfect water and perfect food, it grows big and watery. If you stress it with a little salt, the fruit might be smaller, but the flavor is incredibly concentrated. It's intense. It's a trade-off many gourmet growers are willing to make.
So Kesser isn't crazy. He's actually on the cutting edge of agricultural science, even if he just thinks he's using beach trash.
But there is a second layer to this, which comes from Oma.
Oma. Grandma philosophy. I love this part.
Oma has a philosophy that I would describe as Spartan. She believes in the survival of the fittest.
Tell us about Oma's view on the salt and the cold.
Her view is, so what if the salt kills a few plants? If a seed can survive the old soil, the salt, and the cold northern climate, it is genetically superior. It is a warrior plant.
And if it dies?
Then it was weak, and it didn't deserve Steen's time anyway.
That is so harsh, but also kind of freeing.
It is incredibly freeing, especially for a beginner like Steen. It completely reframes failure. If the plant dies, it's not because Steen is a bad gardener. It's because the plant wasn't strong enough for the mission. It removes the guilt.
It turns gardening from a chore where you have to save everyone into a selection process. You aren't nursing weaklings, you are searching for champions.
And that psychological angle is crucial. If you feel like a failure every time a leaf turns yellow, you will quit. If you view it as survival of the fittest, you keep going with the survivors. You embrace the losses as part of the data.
So let's look at what they're actually planting. We have 2 varieties mentioned in the notes that they're putting into these salt-laced tubes.
We have a bush type and a cherry type.
Tell me about the bush type.
This is destined for a large ornamental pot on the terrace. It grows dense and low. It doesn't need a lot of vertical support. It's perfect for a patio, maybe right near the kitchen door.
And the cherry type.
That's the one for the engineer. It's going to need a bamboo tippy structure. That is Steen's future construction project.
I can already see him measuring the bamboo with calipers.
Oh, without a doubt. He's going to build that tippy like it needs to survive a hurricane. And honestly, with the way cherry tomatoes grow, it might need to. They can get massive.
So we have this amazing image of 2 students in a stolen moment of time using cardboard trash, dead seaweed, and saved seeds to create something that could eventually feed a family.
It's a perfect microcosm of innovation. We often think innovation requires a grant, a lab, and shiny new equipment. We think we need perfect conditions to start. Kesser and Steen proved that innovation is mostly about observation and adaptation.
They observed what they had.
Right. They observed they had free tubes. They observed they had free time. They adapted the soil with what was available, the seaweed. They adapted their schedule.
And they branded it as a biology experiment to keep the authorities off their backs.
The most important step, you always have to sell the vision.
It really makes you look at your own trash differently. Like, I'm looking at my paper towel roll right now and thinking, are you a pot?
And you should be. That is carbon. That is resources.
But I think the biggest takeaway for me is the balance between the forced approach and the volunteer approach.
Unpack that a bit more as we wrap up.
Well, Kesser and Steen are forcing these seeds. They're using artificial heat, artificial containers, rehydrating them manually with a teaspoon. They're pushing against the season. And that is great. That is human industry. That's willpower.
It's creating opportunity.
Exactly. But they also acknowledge the volunteer seeds, the things that happen when you just let nature take its course, the seeds that show up when the time is absolutely right.
You really need both. You need the preparation, the doing the homework part, so that when the sun finally hits, you are ready. But you also have to be humble enough to realize that sometimes the thing that grows on its own is better than the thing you tried to engineer.
And sometimes the thing you engineered is just a great excuse to hang out with your friend and cut cardboard tubes during a free period.
That is also a perfectly valid outcome. The social connection is just as organic as the tomato.
So here's a thought for you to chew on as you go about your day. We talked about volunteer seeds in the garden, the ones that just show up and thrive. Where do you have volunteer seeds in your life?
That is a very good question to leave them with.
What are the projects or opportunities that are trying to grow naturally without you forcing them that you might be ignoring because you're too busy staring at your indoor plants? Maybe it's a hobby, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a career path you never planned for.
Sometimes the best fruit comes from the vine you didn't plant.
Exactly. Look for the volunteers. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you next time. Okay. Let's unpack this. I want you to picture a really specific scene.
All right, set the stage for us.